What's up? What's up, Middle Georgia Dog Pound? Welcome to another edition of the Middle Georgia Dog Pound Live. I'm your host, Brian. Here's Matt, Kevin. What's up, fellas?
How we doing, bud?
Great, doing great. I think Kevin is muted. Hey, we got a great show for you guys tonight. Looking forward to having our special guest on, Keith Marshall. Going to share a few things regarding the collective that he's got going on for our Georgia Bulldogs, and going to have him on, share his thoughts on the national championship. But before we do that, a few housekeeping tidbits. I want to remind you guys that we want to love to see your comments. Please comment on our screen. We're glad to show those on the screen, and love to hear what you have to say. Well, without further ado, why don't we go ahead and bring Keith on? I know he's waiting in the wings here.
John, how you doing, man?
Mr. Marshall, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, man. I'm on the road, but I certainly appreciate you guys having me on tonight.
We are very grateful for you to be here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Keith, tell us a little bit about what you got going on these days.
Yeah, man. So, my life over the last few years, obviously, football has ended for me and decided to go back to school, got an MBA, and then started a company last November with some of my former teammates, Aaron Murray, then the Frick brothers, and it's turned into a full-fledged business model. Started off as kind of a side hustle, not even a side hustle, really a side project. Just last holiday break, guys were at home and we had some free time, and so we figured we'd come up with a way to support some of the current UGA athletes and get involved with the whole Web3 craze that was going on. And so, most of my life in the last 6 months has really been surrounded by the Players Lounge and trying to take that thing to the next level.
Well, what is the Players Lounge? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it started off with the the entire crypto rage that was going on probably about 6 months ago, which has since waned quite a bit. But we basically decided we would drop some PFPs, which for those of you that don't know, they're kind of like these little avatar deals that people use as their profile picture. So that's where the PFP comes from. And they were crazy in crypto world. You had the Bored Apes, the Crypto Kitties, the Crypto Punks. And so with the success of UGA last year, it was like, hey, it would be really cool if we came out and we dropped some that kind of commemorated the Georgia's football season as they pushed to the national championship. And that was the initial idea, but it then morphed into something that was more around, player engagement. Because of NIL, we were able to partner with current UGA athletes, and they were able to offer fans special utilities or perks for joining the community and ultimately owning one of those PFPs. And so, now the business model is basically we are an NIL platform. On one side of it, you have fans that they buy basically their membership, so you can think of it as your yearly subscription. On the other side, that money goes to the student athletes. In turn, the student athletes engage with the community. And so the idea is that, fans get more direct access to players than they ever did before because of NIL and the fact that these kids can get paid to engage now.
So we're looking at, I don't know if you can see this, we're looking at the website on our screen here with the Players Lounge, and I see the different opportunities to purchase one of the NFTs here. What do you get with that when you're purchasing that NFT? I see one for $99. I see one all the way up to $17.50. What are you getting when you make that purchase?
So for DGD, it's a special case, right? Because at this point, we've expanded to multiple schools. So we're schools all across the Southeastern Conference. But at Georgia, those NFTs, they forever hold their value. And so, if you were to go purchase that one for now right now, you would get access to our message board, which is in Discord. And so 3 nights a week right now, we have current, UGA student athletes that go in there. They answer fans. There's typically a Discord topic. So again, it's just a way for fans to really engage and get to know the athletes beyond what they do on the field. The other thing that the NFTs basically unlock access to is content. And so we do a weekly, we call it the Wednesday mail drop, where it's basically a Q&A we have with one of the student athletes up there, and fans kind of their questions before the show, and it's a back and forth where they're kind of on the stage like a clubhouse. And then we have some longer form content that's headed up by my brother Tavares King, who I'm sure you guys remember, great player. He's got a great personality for it, and so we call that the lounge. And the idea of that is really for fans to be able to understand who the athletes are, where they come from, to give the opportunity for the athletes to share their perspectives and their stories on football, on life, on things they may be interested in doing down the line. So that's one of the other additional perks to people that were in the community. It was a great turnout. We had a tailgate around G-Day. We had a party the night before G-Day. We've done some stuff that was geared more towards our college crowd in terms of like a beer pong tournament, things that were fun. And then we've also had a couple one-off experiences with Kendall Milton and BMW, and we got some things coming down the pipeline with a golf brand and some of the guys on the team that like to golf. So, join the community, get you access to attend all of those events, and to kind of really, again, get to know the athletes and engage in a way that hadn't been done before.
I got you. So the different levels, is there any is there any difference between buying the $99 one and the $5,000 one?
Yeah, I would assume that $5,000 one is what you would call a legendary dog, so it may have a signature or something on it. And so the whole idea is that there's different tiers or there's different rarities. And so we didn't necessarily create the system, but the fans and people that really love crypto, they've gone in, they've determined, hey, this trait, there's only X amount of them, therefore it should cost this much. And then again, on the utility side of things, if you come to an event and you have a legendary dog, the idea is that, you may get, I guess, more access than the person that has a common dog. So, you may get extra drinks, or, you may get to be first in line to go meet a player, or you may have the first right to refusal to one of the other experiences that we've talked about.
Awesome. Well, it's definitely something that we're looking at getting involved in. I appreciate you coming on and telling us a little about it. And I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you a few questions about the national championship. Where were you? What was your reaction? How did it make you feel?
Well, I mean, how did it make me feel? It made me feel like it was a long time coming, man. I mean, the amount of times over the last decade, even going back to 2012, my freshman year, that we really had Alabama beat almost, and somehow they pulled that rabbit out of the hat and been able to walk away with it. I'm pretty sure they were kind of on the edge of their seats and didn't want to wait to celebrate. But like I say, it was really a long time coming. It almost felt like it was a victory for. I wouldn't say it felt like it was a victory for everybody, from the fans to the lettermen to the guys that played way back in the day. So we were ecstatic. I watched it with Marla Herrera. Watched it at his apartment. Big games like that, I don't like to necessarily go be in a crowd. I don't want to be out. I want to be somewhere where I can sit down and watch the game and really, get to kind of break it down with people that I feel like understand the game in a similar way that I do.
Absolutely. Kevin, Matt, y'all got any questions for Keith?
You can go ahead, Kevin.
I was just going to ask, as a former dog, what does it mean to you personally to have that championship, knowing that this is something that, every player before now has worked for, strived for? What does that mean to the former dogs to have that championship now?
Well, absolutely, man. Again, I think it was like a long time coming. It's a sense of pride, right? Like, it brings all of the former dogs back together because everybody is kind of banded together in support of and celebrating this excitement around the program. So, whenever the dogs are doing well, you're talking to all the boys that you played with, all the group chats are going crazy. It really brings back that camaraderie that you miss from college, being in the locker room around your guys the whole time. It just provided another reason for us to connect and fellowship. So it was super exciting, man. I hope, I don't want to get too caught up in it at this point. The mind state in football is like, what's past is fast. And at this point, they got another season coming up. We're going to kick off in about, I think it's 44 days or so or something like that. So, I'm excited to see the encore. To see what these guys do. I think to stay there, and I have full faith that Kirby and the squad are going to make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think that we've got an opportunity to repeat, even though that's one of the hardest things to do in sports, right? Is to repeat a national championship. But definitely got the tools in place to make that happen. So one of our viewers had a question. He said, "What was your favorite part of attending UGA outside of playing football?"
My favorite. So that is a question I had to think about being politically correct. As I answer, Georgia. When I first got I went to UGA and I was very what they call green. I went at 17. I was very. I wouldn't say I was probably sheltered a little bit growing up. Stayed in the house a lot, and so it was somewhat of a culture shock. And I didn't do any drinking or anything until I got 21. But that last year, it was a good time. To go out and have some fun, let loose a little bit. I was always very focused, and so to be able to enjoy college a little bit, particularly after I got hurt and kind of wasn't as involved. Football, I had to take some time off to rehab. It was good to kind of be a kid a little bit, man, and get to know people outside of the football program and really expand my network that way. But in all seriousness, downtown Athens was a great time. I have a lot of good memories, and I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes I walk down whenever I'm visiting. I just reminisce. It was, yeah. I can't get into too many details, but we had a good time.
Absolutely. Matt?
So for me, Keith, this is a little bit of my man crush part coming on. I can remember when you committed to UGA, where I was, what I was doing, and what I was wearing that day. I was so excited when you committed to the University of Georgia. I saw the future coming our way, and I was so glad that you came on, and I can still remember that day. So I still want to thank you for coming on and really being a good dog for us and being a hard worker and a model student and player for us for the UGA. So for me, one of my things is a question I have for you is, what's the one thing that you've enjoyed the most now in this new venture with the lounge? What's the thing that you've enjoyed the most in this new challenge you guys are taking on?
From the very beginning has been amazing, and so it's been easy to reciprocate that. The thing that's been the coolest about this experience is, so just to kind of give you some more context about where
We lost him.
We lost him. Of course, on my question, we lose him.
Yep, we sure did. Golly,
Oh,
I hate
man.
that. Well,
Sorry for all those.
hopefully-
And he's driving right now, so he's driving to Michigan, so he's probably coming in out of signal.
Yep. Well, that was definitely fun. I feel like I owe our viewers an apology. We've had some technical difficulties. We haven't run a show here in 3 months, and we try to fire things back up, and they just things don't work the way they're supposed to work. So that just is what it is, and hopefully we'll have all this fixed by the next show. But sure was good to have Keith on. Golly, I hate that it dropped off, but it just is what it is.
Yeah, we sure do appreciate having him on and his time.
Yep, absolutely. Well, guys, it doesn't look like he's coming back on. So, well, there he is. There he is. He's back.
fellas, I don't know what was the last thing y'all heard. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened.
I heard you were starting to talk about the new venture with the Players Lounge and what you started to really enjoy about it.
Yeah. So I was kind of basically what I was getting at is it kind of married the two worlds for me. Business, being able to kind of be a businessman and think strategically, and go out and really think about all the things that go into running a company and trying to make sure everything is moving together. Passion. So to basically marry the two worlds, the business side and then obviously the football side of myself, which I've been, in that world since I was, 6 years old. It's been really the icing on the cake is just getting back around a lot of my guys. The Players Lounge has brought me back where I talk to Aaron, my old quarterback. We talk 30 times a day, too much. And normally I wake up in the morning, I have 4 texts from him already.
Oh, wow.
And then, a lot of my guys have already, supported the project and gotten involved in some ways. I mentioned Tavares King, he's super involved. And really just to get back around guys that, it's almost like family to me has been awesome.
Well, Keith, I don't want to hold you any longer. I want to be cognizant of your time. I do appreciate you coming on and sharing a little bit about the Players Lounge and the DGD Mafia. Definitely a bunch of guys on this call here that are going to get involved, I'm sure. And hopefully we'll get to see you in Athens shortly.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate y'all fellas having me on. And as always, they say go dogs.
Go dogs.
Dogs.
Thanks,
Take it
Keith.
easy, man. Yep.
Bye-bye. Oh, that was awesome, man.
Oh, that's great.
That was awesome.
Good stuff.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Yeah, definitely give me a better appreciation for the Players Lounge. That's for sure. Let's see. John Akaki said, will Keith be attending the August 20th scrimmage? Well, sorry I didn't ask that, John. I apologize. I didn't see it come up. I'm sure that he will be there. Him and Aaron Murray. Aaron Murray's always there at the scrimmage.
He is.
So he definitely will be there, I'm sure. Well, guys, let's get into this thing. Let's hit this SEC schedule and talk a little bit about the upcoming games and where we expect all these teams to pan out and where they're going to rank in the SEC. But before we do that, I want to talk about something that's a little bit embarrassing and a little bit sad. Our fellow DGD, Mr. JT Daniels, in the West Virginia uniform.
Mountaineer Nation, let's ride. Mountaineer Nation, let's ride. Mountaineer Nation, let's ride.
Definitely a little cringeworthy.
Very.
Don't know what else to say about that other than
No.
cringeworthy.
Just wishing the best, but that was hard to watch.
Absolutely it was. So I guess you guys heard about the new commitment, Yazid Haynes. Was able to pull a little highlight video I wanted to show you guys that I thought was pretty impressive.
Mindset on this one.
Nope, that's not the right video. One more technical issue here. Let's try this one more time.
Boom. Love it.
Let's see him.
136. Oh, yeah. Nice job.
All right. Well, that is not going to work, and I do apologize, guys. We're just dealing with some major internet issues tonight, and I am so sorry. I am going to forego any more videos because nothing seems to be working, and I do apologize. But I was hoping to show you some highlight video of Yazid Haynes. He may be a 3-star, but this guy is super twitchy, man. He is so twitchy and got some sticky hands, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do on the field next year. So without further ado, though, let's just jump into this SEC schedule, and we'll talk about Auburn.
Hold on. John Akaki just posted something on here. If we win back-to-back natties, will you 3 shave those beards? No.
Absolutely.
No,
Absolutely.
I will not.
I will. I will. Heck yeah.
I will
We
like
can
color
bank on that.
That's good.
Good stuff. Good stuff. All right, who had Auburn?
That was not me.
Yeah, it was me. It was probably you, Brian.
That was me. It is me. Lord have mercy. It is one of those days, y'all. I'm so sorry.
Hey, we'll get this thing back rolling.
Yeah, we'll be ready to go for the Oregon game. That is for dang sure, because I'm not gonna do this again. So it looks like Auburn has 11 returning starters. However, they've got 2 new coordinators. We've got some major questions at QB. Right now, it's between JT Finley or Zach Calzada, and I don't know which one is worse. They are having to restock their entire receiving corps. They've got a few receivers. Last year, their top receivers were Kobe Hudson, Demetrius Robertson, and Javaris Johnson. All have left or gone. Defense, total rebuild. The only person that I saw in their in the list of folks coming back was Owen Papo, but there's a lot of holes to fill on that defense under linebacker. Last year, their secondary was probably one of the best in the SEC West with Smoke Monday, Roger McCreary, Badarius Knighton, and Ladarius Tennyson, and they are all gone. So they picked up a couple of JUCO transfers, a Marquise Gilbert and a Keontae Scott. You're supposed to be the number 3 JUCO player in the nation. So see if that could give them some help, but I don't expect them to do better than 4-8. We have a bad feeling. I think we talked about it the other night that Mercer could pull an upset with their season opener. We'll see. Mercer was ranked number 2 in their conference today, and so it's going to be interesting to see what Mercer can do against Auburn. Mississippi State.
All right, so that's me. So you guys can look there on the screen. So Mississippi State for me was one of those teams that are just so unpredictable. So for them, they have the most returning starters in the whole entire SEC. They're returning 80% of their starters. They have 17 starters, 9 on offense and 8 on defense. The problem, though, with Mississippi State is that they are so inconsistent across the board. We had a hard time coming together what we thought this team would actually end up doing. And so, I mean, we look at this schedule here, and we could easily see them winning more than 6 games, easily. But honestly, if we look at their inconsistency throughout the year that they're going to have, I think they'll still end up around, at best, probably 7-5. But this right now, preseason early, we're looking at them at a 6-6. I do still see them winning early on at LSU. And so that's going to be, I mean, at LSU, but that could be their springboard. They may be coming into week 5 playing against A&M and maybe ranked, but I don't think it lasts very long. Even though they have a lot of stars coming back, I just don't think they're consistent enough across the board. So that's what I have on Mississippi State.
Ole Miss.
That's me. All right. As we know, Matt Corral is gone. He's gone to the NFL. So, you know, he was a big playmaker on the offensive side of the ball, and he kept a lot of plays alive. He kept things rolling in the offense, and things that should not happen, he made happen with his athletic ability and just sheer talent. And he's not going to be there this year. That is going to be a big hit to the offensive side of the ball. They are going to be missing their number 1 receiver. He is also gone. Drummond, I think that's how you say his name. He led Ole Miss with 76 catches and 1,028 yards and 8 touchdowns. They're also is going to have a lack of continuity in this program. They lost their offensive coordinator, Jeff Levy, lost their co-defensive coordinator, DJ Durkin, to Texas A&M, And also a new change to their special teams coach. Had his name, don't have it now. Marty Baugh, I think is his last name. It's the third coordinator Kiffin has had at Ole Miss on special teams. So there's just the lack of leadership and the lack of continuity in this team. This year is going to be a real struggle for Kiffin to overcome, I believe. We got this team was 7-5 this year.
And that's going to be lucky if they go 7-5, I think.
Yeah.
LSU. I think LSU is going to surprise some folks this year, y'all. They've got some talent on that team. People don't realize it, but they've got plenty of it. They got 6. I counted 6 returning starters, but there's really, honestly, there's more starters than that because they had a lot of people that played a lot last year that maybe didn't start. They got plenty of experience, and then they're bringing back Miles Brennan, who has something to prove. If you guys remember, he's the one that I think he broke his leg 2 or 3 years ago, and then last year before the season started, some fluke fishing trip he was taking, he tripped over his flip-flop and broke his arm. So this kid's got something to prove. He's coming in with a chip on his shoulder, and he's going to come out firing. So I'm interested to see what he can do, under center. But also, Keyshawn Butte, he broke his ankle last year, and he was the top receiver. After 6 games, he had 509 yards, y'all. 509 yards with 38 catches and 9 TDs in 6 games. This guy can be electric. So look for him to put some numbers on the board for sure. And then on the defensive side of the ball, we got a few guys that are coming back that are key playmakers. You guys will recognize his name, BJ Ojolari. And Mike Jones, both of those guys will be back and provide some continuity to the defensive side of the ball. I want to talk a little bit about these coaching hires that LSU made. Brian Kelly, he brought in some really good guys. Of course, you guys know this name will jump out at you is Cortez Hankton. He was our wide receivers coach, left UGA to go home to LSU. He's there. Matt House. If you guys, that name doesn't ring out to you, it does to me. He was the linebackers coach at Kansas City. And so he brings a lot of NFL experience to that team. And then Mike Denbrock, I don't know if that name rings a bell to you, but it's the Cincinnati OC. He was there for like 5 or 6 years with Cincinnati. Helped develop that the quarterback that eventually got drafted to the Falcons. So he's got a lot of experience. So I'll give it to Brian Kelly. He made some key hires. Those are just the notables that I've thrown out. But I looked at the rest of the coaching staff, and they're pretty impressive. So look for LSU to surprise some folks this year. I really believe that. The key to Brian Kelly is going to be recruiting from this point forward, because he came in with he didn't come in with a bare cupboard. Let's just put it that way. But we've got him going 7-5 this year. Texas A&M. Oh, go ahead, Kevin.
I was going to say, Dad said that LSU's not losing to Florida, and he may be right.
Yeah, he might be right to that one. John
I don't know if
Akaki
that's
wants
the
to
same.
know. Yeah, I got it. John Akaki says, do any of our Dog Pound commentators have an NIL deal? No, we don't. We are so that we can't even get our internet to work right, John.
If you want to be our first contributor, we'll take it, John.
Right.
Yeah, we'll be glad to take the NIL deal for our khaki shorts. All right, Texas A&M. They've got 9 returning starters. Obviously, the quarterback questions there. I've got Max Johnson or Haynes King. Those are going to be the two quarterbacks they're drawing from. Haynes King, of course, he was out last year with injury, and Max Johnson came over from LSU. It's going to be interesting to see who gets chosen to lead the team. They got a returning running back at Devon. I don't even know how to pronounce his last name. It's Achane. Ashane. He had a 910 yards last year and 9 TDs, and that was in a backup role. So look for him to be pretty explosive. Returning receiver Anais Smith. He was the second leading receiver on the team last year with 509 yards. And then some defensive linemen that are coming back to solidify that front line: Darius Jones, Isaiah Rakes, and McKinney Jackson. But in my opinion, when looking at the roster of Texas A&M, they've got the most talented team that Jimbo Fisher's ever had at A&M. And if they don't go 10-2, people are going to be running them out of town over there. That is for dang sure.
So with that, I just let everybody else know, we were talking last night about this team. I know, why are you guys talking about Texas A&M? Because like I said, Brian said, we went back over the roster and looked at the returning starters and looked at stuff. And I think ultimately we think the potential is there for a 10-2 team, but we also know that this team could go 7-5. I think it's very big potential. This team goes 7-5. Last year with all that talent they had, all those starters, they went at best 8-4. So they should be progressing with all the talent they paid for. That's where I said it. The talent they paid for, plus all the coaching expenses that they're paying for, they should be at least a 10-2 team. With all the recruiting they've done over the last couple of years. So we'll see what it is. We're sticking with the 10-2, but don't be surprised if you see another 8-4, a 7-5 season.
So I'll give everybody a guess on who the number one team in the West is going to be. It's going to be Alabama. Before we get there, we'll talk about Arkansas.
All right, Arkansas. This is going to be a good one because actually I'm going to be pulling for Arkansas in the West this year. And it's they got their number one quarterback, KJ Jefferson. He's returning. It always helps to have your veteran quarterback return. It's going to create that continuity on the offensive side of the ball. And you should see him put up more rushing yards this season. But he's going to have a new target, and Jaden Hasselwood is a transfer from Oklahoma.
Jaden Hazelwood, Georgia went after him hard, and we did not get him. Went to Oklahoma. I remember that name.
Yeah,
even though he was committed to us for 8 months.
I know, right?
Yeah, he had 39 catches at Oklahoma, but some are predicting him to go upwards of 60, 65 catches this season. So that should give Jefferson a new target. I know he lost his number one receiver this year, so this should help him out. Just got to build that chemistry between the two. Also, they have a pair of catching tight ends coming in. If you go back and look at these, Henry Hudson and Trey Knox. Hudson is a junior, and he's expected to emerge this season as a big target. He's actually on the John Mackey watch list. If you didn't know, we also have a tight end on that list. But they also had the guy Knox. He's a senior, so he's been around, and in the 2021 season, he played 12 games, had 2 catches for 141 yards and 1 touchdown. But I think that's going to probably change as the season goes along. They'll probably figure out more ways to get him into the game. On the defense, it's led by the defense coordinator, Barry Odom. So if you go back and look at Barry Odom's track record, every team he's been with in year 3 has had a dominant defense. He has had the time to get that defense dialed into what he wants. In 2020, Arkansas's defense was ranked 66th. Last year, it was ranked 17th. So this year, you should expect big things off of that Barry Odom defense.
And of course, Alabama. Everybody knew that they're going to be ranked number 1 in the West. And we believe there's going to be an upset in there. Whether or not it's going to be Tennessee, we think there's an upset brewing somewhere in their schedule. We just chose Tennessee because of the fact that it is in Knoxville, and they're going to be ready for that game. Tennessee took Alabama to the fourth quarter last year, and had it not been for a couple of things with the officiating and a couple of drop passes, they may have been in that at the end of the fourth quarter to win that game. Matt, what you think?
So yeah, I agree with you. I think we were torn between Arkansas and Tennessee was who was going to beat Alabama this year. Because let's look at Alabama. So yes, they're coming off the national championship loss to the national champions Georgia Bulldogs, but they are returning 13 starters, 5 on offense and 8 on defense. So defense is going to be improved, as they were a subpar defense last year, not the kind we've seen in the past. But their offense, which they think is the world beaters, is only returning 5 starters. And out of those 5 starters, we saw no substantial wide receivers come out of that national championship game. We saw no dominant receivers after their 2 main guys went down. Yes, they brought in Burton, but Burton can't do it all by himself. He's not the breakaway speed guy that the other 2 that they've had in the past. So he may get a lot of play time. That's kind of what he's there for. He wanted to be the number 1 guy. So be that number 1 guy for them. Great, but you're not. There's no one behind him. He can't stay healthy. They're going to be in serious trouble come time. Because you can say you want to. Young is he's a Heisman Trophy candidate again. You have a great defensive a leader on the defense as Anderson, but we still see a loss in there. And I think we're thinking the loss is going to come from Tennessee, mainly because the game before that is when they're playing Texas A&M, and we all want to watch that game. We all want to watch Jimbo get his brains beat in against Alabama, and it's going to happen. That's going to be an emotional game. So after that, they're going to weigh all their emotions in that game. And they're going to have to come into Tennessee, and we'll see if they still have those emotions left to get Tennessee's offense to calm down. Like Brian said, they barely beat them, but just like Arkansas took them to the fourth quarter as well. So I think those 2 are going to be 2 games to look at on their schedule. Could they be 12-0? Yes. Could they be 10-2? Yes. But we're looking at they're going to lose one of those games, and it's Arkansas or Tennessee.
Yeah, I totally agree, Matt. Here's the thing. There's a reason that Alabama came and got Jermaine Burton, right? There's a reason that they went and got the Georgia Tech running back, right? There's a reason why they went and got another receiver out of the portal. They realized that they got exposed in that championship game, that they don't have the talent. They haven't developed those guys to be ready in the event that their number is called, and it showed. It showed. I mean, there was drop pass after drop pass after drop pass, and I don't think Alabama is as good as what everybody thinks they're going to be. There's no way that Jermaine Burton can go over there and do what Jamison Williams did. He's not that type of receiver. I'm sorry.
It's funny that the guy who complained about the portal the most at the beginning of this whole thing, Nick Saban, is now reaping the benefits off the portal with receivers. Because all his main big-time receivers he's gotten have come from the portal.
Yep. Yeah, that should speak to what he's got coming up in the ranks, too, because if he's pulling all these portal guys, obviously he doesn't have any development on the back end, bringing players up through the ranks and having them ready to play.
Yep.
Well, let's see. I'm going the wrong direction here.
Yep.
Vanderbilt. Let's get to the East here, guys. Is there a
All
whole
right.
lot is there really a lot to say about this team?
What? These are the national champions. This is the best team.
One vote. One vote in media days, right?
Are you kidding me? So yeah.
Somebody thought they were funny.
Yeah, I got this one. I think their biggest win's going to be Hawaii, and that's going to be it for them the rest of the season. Nothing really to say about Vanderbilt. I'm glad their coach wants to support them. I'm glad the coach, their coach believes in them. He's saying all the right things, but ultimately you got to live in the reality, buddy. And the reality is you're going to be 3-9 at best.
Yep, agreed. Missouri.
Oh, I had Missouri. Missouri, we got them. We got them up there 4-8. Yeah, I think the big reason they're going to be 4-8 is Mr. Eli Drinkowitz likes to play Star Wars games with Dan Mullen too much. He's not focused on being a head coach. He's ended up playing games, and we saw that last year. They're going to have a new starting quarterback. It hasn't been officially named. Everybody thinks it's going to be Tyler Macon. That's what all the word is, all the buzz is. It's Tyler Macon. As you know, they heavily went after JT Daniels, and I don't think Daniels wanted to get pummeled by Georgia at all. He knew what Georgia had, and he decided to go elsewhere. But Macon had one start, and if we remember, that one start was against none other than UGA. He had 13 attempts in that game for 74 yards and 6 completions, and that was that. They have no real changes on the offensive side of the ball. They got one 5-star receiver that they got coming in. He's a freshman. The only hope to change on the defense, which gave up an average of 36 points per game, is the transfer players that they got coming in. It's the Hopper cousins. One is Tyron and one is Tyrone. One was coming from Florida and one is coming from North Carolina. They're both linebackers that hopefully slow down some of that offensive, points that keep having put up on them. And then they got in a safety coming out of Clemson, Joseph Charleston, and hopefully he may be able to help in the backfield. But the lack of continuity and combined with a lack of experience is going to be a cause for concern for Missouri this year, and that's why we got them at 4-8.
Florida.
So I got Florida.
No more Dan Mullen.
Woo! Yeah. So Florida is one of those other ones, those tricky ones. Like you should see the progression and them progress this year, but I just don't believe it's going to happen. And we got them at 6-6. They may be able to squeak one of those wins out, maybe 7-5, but I think 6-6 is going to be successful for them. I know all the media saying they'll compete for the East. I know the media loves Richardson and all that jazz. The guy can't stay healthy. He's got a new system to play under. I just don't see a lot of wins for them this year. Emotional wins and all that stuff. So we got them at 6-6. They are returning 6 starters on offense and 8 starters on defense. So defense wasn't awful last year. So they're getting some of those guys back, which will be good for them. But their offense isn't going to put enough points up to beat the majority of the teams on their schedule, in our opinion. So, but the one good thing for them, they do have 4 returning starters. Out of those 6 returning starters, 4 of them on the offensive line. So we could see some kind of good protection for him, but ultimately, they're not top tier 4 guys are starting. So we'll see how it is. I think we're still going to stick with 6-6.
Yeah, I wanted to throw a little tidbit out here. Matt said he's really staunch on this that that Utah is going to beat Florida, and I got to digging into it, and you might be right, Bud, because they're looking like they can win the Pac-12 based off of their experience, and if they win this game, it sets them up to go undefeated for the rest of the season. And what happened to Cincinnati last year when they went undefeated their entire season and they had one premier win?
Yep.
They made it into the college football playoff, right?
Yep.
So Utah is looking at their schedule going, happened to Cincinnati, it could happen to us. They've got a reason to win that game. That is for sure.
Yep. Oh, one thing I hate to go backtracking, but I know we've been talking about one of the games that I'm harped on, and Kevin talked about in our discussion time last week, was that he believes that Mercer's going to beat Auburn first game of the season.
Yeah.
That's my upset pick of official week 1. The reason being is Mercer's already going to have their first game under wraps. They're going to lock that one down. So they're going to have time to fix their issues on both sides of the ball. So it's not like they're going to come in there and not have played a single game. They're already going to have one game under their belt.
Yep, totally agree. Bo Nix in Oregon. Dome, watch, and effect. Oregon is loaded with 4 stars, not to be taken lightly. I totally agree, John. Nobody's looking past them. That is for sure. Nobody is looking past Oregon. And Dan Lanning's, he knows where our weaknesses are, and we can't take that for granted. That's for sure. Utah's defense is legit. Yeah, I'll agree. All right, South Carolina.
That's me also. So I know, like, it's almost as to me, it's almost as jokeable as Vanderbilt, but I think South Carolina's got 3 votes to win the East as well. Like, isn't that they got 3 to win the East? But they think that this Tyler Ratledge kid is going to come in and change the dynamic of their offense. I don't see it. I kind of like going back. I'm seeing these crazy videos out there with Beamer and his weird, team videos, and it's just like, stop being a clown and let's play football. We still have that. I mean, so let's look at South Carolina's numbers. They're turning 15 starters, 8 on offense, and 7 on defense. Defense wasn't very good last year, and it ain't gonna be very good this year. So even with your addition to your offense with Ratledge, offense didn't move the ball very well. Everybody's looking, okay, at the end of the season they did really well. Well, the back end of their schedule last year were against a bunch of under 500 teams. So against teams who had winning records, they got beat. They only beat the teams who were on the bottom of the totem pole. So if they're looking at that projection as them being better this year, then great. But I didn't see it.
Spencer Rattler, by the way.
Sorry.
Spencer Rattler.
Whatever. What I say?
Tyler Ratledge.
Whatever. They're all the same. We're gonna ring his Rattler when we sack him 7 times in the game.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So they got some. They got that. They have a good cornerback and a good tight end that they're gonna be looking as their main leaders on their offensive and defensive team. So yeah, we could see maybe even at 8-4 if they pull a game out, but they're not going to get anywhere sniffing near the top of the SEC East.
Yeah, I totally agree. Call this PTSD or whatever you want to call it, but that darn South Carolina game 3 for us, always makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up. And I know you're going to say, old ball coach ain't there no more. So we just need to get over that, because that kind of stuff is not going to happen anymore. He's not going to pull a trick out of his hat to beat us. But golly, I do still suffer PTSD from that darn South Carolina game. So Bill Krug says Monken didn't show what his offense can do last year, but he will have to pull out all the stops this year. I think that our defense is going to surprise you some, Bill. I really do. A lot of those guys had tons of playing time last year. Maybe they didn't start, but you got to remember, those guys were in a lot the third and fourth quarter of every game, not just a few games, not just the no-name teams. Every single game, the second, third string guys were out there playing. So they've got a lot of experience. So don't forget that. John Akaki says that Bill's nervous. He might be. He might be. All right. Tennessee.
That's me. I got Tennessee. This one, we went back and forth on this one. We went 9-3, 10-2. Brian's got them listed 10-2 here, and I'm leaning more toward 10-2. The more I look at it, they got the return of Hendon Hooker as their quarterback, and this kid blew up the field, man. And he would play whether he was hurt or not. And he is a tough guy, tough kid. He's going to be one of the better or best quarterbacks in the SEC this year. 2021, he was 68.2% on his pass completed for 2,945 yards. That is a lot of throws. 31 touchdowns, and he only had 3 interceptions. And on a little side note, one of those interceptions was against the Dogs.
Right.
And then he got the return of their running back, Jabari Small. In 2021, he had 797 yards rushing, 148 attempts, 9 touchdowns, and he averaged 5.7 yards a carry. Also, the return of Cedric Tillman. He's going to be one of the SEC's top receivers. Last year, he had 64 catches for 1,081 yards and 12 touchdowns. So they're not going to be losing anything really on the offensive side of the ball. What I do see, though, is on the defense, they have got to do – it's really on both. The offense has got to quit moving so fast and quit putting their defense on the field for so long, because they'll blast down the field and score a touchdown and then put the defense right back on the field, and that's where their downfall is they wear their defense out. If they can figure out a way to quit killing their defense through the whole game, I think that's going to be a turnaround. That game with Kentucky right there is going to be one to watch, because that is the one right before they play Georgia. So I think it's going to change I think we were all discussing this, that it was going to change the outlook coming into the Georgia game there. And it could very well be a tough game, but on the flip side of that is they are playing in Athens there. So I don't think that Georgia's going to lose that game.
Dad says Kentucky could be a loss.
It could be.
I agree.
And John Akaki says Tennessee will be our toughest regular season game. Glad it's at home. Yeah, I went back and forth with that, John. I was debating on whether Tennessee was going to be the toughest one or whether it was going to be Mississippi State. Of course, I'm jumping the gun when we'll get to that. But
And we had
Kentucky. Did I skip one? No, we're on Kentucky.
Mm-mm. I'm done with
go
mine.
ahead. Kentucky. All right, so Kentucky has 13 returning starters, 7 on offense and 6 on defense. I think they've got to replace 1 offensive lineman. That's it. I don't think they're replacing anybody on the defensive line. That's a matchup nightmare for any team in the SEC. You got experience like that. It's going to be tough to beat because everybody can agree the game is won between the trenches, right? Mm-hmm. So when you got that type of experience, it is going to be a matchup nightmare for any team in the SEC, and including Georgia. I mean, and I think Kirby Smart mentions it every year that Kentucky lines up the best on both sides of the ball. And that we know what we've got to deal with when we're going in, and that's one of our toughest opponents. And playing them in the cold is not going to be an easy deal on November the 19th. Let's just put it that way. Will Levis is returning as the quarterback. Keep in mind, I don't know if you guys saw the stat, and I was trying to pull it up, but they had Will Levis's statistics matched up against Emory Jones' statistics for SEC teams for the first 6 games of the year last year, and Emory Jones' stats were better than Will Levis's stats last year. So comparing apples to apples, if you think about that, same teams they play, I think it was the same teams they were comparing them to, and Emory Jones is no longer at Florida and is not even being considered as one of the top quarterbacks. But for some reason, the mainstream media is hyping up Will Levis like he's the next Joe Burrow, and I just don't see that happening. Don't see it happening. They do have a returning running back with Chris Rodriguez, but to be completely frank with you guys, there's not a lot of media coverage on Kentucky, and to me, that speaks volumes of where they're going to end up this year. I don't think they're going to be as good as everybody thinks they are. So 10-2 might be a little bit high for Kentucky. Bill Krug says Kentucky will beat Tennessee and will have a tough go with Kentucky, but pull away late. See, the concern I have with Kentucky is that they've got a new offensive coordinator. That Liam, what was his name? Liam Nelson or something. He went back to the Rams. Mm-hmm. They hired a quarterback coach from the San Francisco 49ers. His name is Rich Scangarello. Never heard of the guy in my life. But that is a new offensive coordinator. Not sure how dynamic the offense is going to be compared to last year. John Lukaki says our dogs will go as our new linebackers go. They play well, we'll be elite. I agree with that. And that's Yep. Matt Peake has been just a staunch advocate of getting our linebackers right, because if we don't have our middle linebackers right, you can just give it up. All right, on to Georgia. Take it away, Matt.
So I guess Brian was alluding to a little bit ago. I'm always the pessimist of the group and stuff. These guys are so hard believe that we're going to go 12-0, which would be great. Truly believe it, but I still live in some of that weirdness where I always think we're going to lose a game somewhere here and there. But I believe at the same time we could go undefeated again regular season. Very possible. And some of that goes back to just what Akaki said, is that I think honing in on those middle linebackers, getting a good solid 2 depth and with a leader at middle linebacker will help us win. For me, I know people are saying that doesn't make any sense, but for me, our biggest concern game is going to be Mississippi State. And I say that simply because of how they play offense. They play an offense that does a lot of short, within 10 to 15-yard passes. And when you beat that, you have to do your 5 DBs or have really fast linebackers. And so last year, we had tons of fast linebackers. You saw those guys, Dean and Tyndall, and even Walker from time to time, where it could go sideline to sideline and move on the ball and could really impact those big time, those runs and stuff. You saw it against Alabama. You saw it against Michigan. Those things that they did there change the game's landscape for against those offenses. Well, that's the same thing that happen against Mississippi State. And if we don't have those linebackers do that, we're going to be all out of sorts. And we're going to have to go into their town with the stupid cowbells and have to beat them on their field with that kind of offense. Can we beat them? Yes, but it could be one of those games where we have to outscore them. So that's just my opinion. I totally think this is one. I mean, I agree with them. We can go 12-0. I wholeheartedly believe it. But if any game to be looking out for me, it's going to be that Mississippi State game.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that one. Go ahead, Kevin.
I totally disagree with you both. Because that Mississippi State game is the third to last game of the season. It is way down the line. And if you don't think that Kirby Smart is going to have them linebackers dialed in by then, you are sorely mistaken. And when that game comes around, he's going to come out there with the loudspeakers, and he's going to start practice, and he's going to look over the sidelines, and they're going to go hit play. And them cowbells are going to be ringing through the speakers, and they're going to run to practice with the stupid cowbells going to get them accustomed to running plays with them stupid things going off. And I don't think it's going to be an issue down that far in the season. If I was to say that there was anything to be concerned about, I'm kind of with Brian, is going to South Carolina right there that early in the season with new guys. But that one still really doesn't worry me that much. I would be more apt on the Tennessee game than anything, because of their returning starters on the offensive side of the ball. It's just going to be, they're going to mesh, and they're going to have a tough offense to stop, really. But Mississippi State does not concern me.
Tennessee is like my third team that scares me. I care more about Oregon than I do Tennessee.
I agree with you there.
So I
agree with you there.
First game, like I said, it goes back to your point. Early in the season, it's gonna be like one of those Clemson games. Early in the season, gonna have to dial in and be on point. I think my reason for Mississippi State is looking at that. We play Tennessee, which is going to be a big game. If Tennessee is undefeated or has one loss, it's going to be repeating. We're going to put all the energy into Tennessee, and then bam, we beat them. Like, okay, we're playing a Mississippi State team who's probably 5-4. We should beat them. We got to beat Kentucky next week to win the East. We don't want to overlook Mississippi State, and we end up getting in a shooting match. That's what I worry about.
Yeah, gotcha. Well, John Akaki says Dumas Johnson must play well. I agree with that. Dad said he disagrees with me and Matt on Mississippi State. And then Hunter Ivy says Kentucky will beat Tennessee.
Cool.
That one, it can go either way. It really could. I still think that Tennessee is going to pull that one out, but I agree with him. Kentucky could beat them.
Yeah.
Well, guys, any closing thoughts before we close this thing out?
It is good to be back on here doing the show with you guys again. I am ready for this season to start.
I'm so ready to. I was telling you guys before the show, I cannot wait for the first week in September. I'm ready for the weather to change. I'm ready for some football. And I am really, truly ready to get back on here and talk football with you guys and to hear from everybody out there in Dog Nation.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to getting this Oregon game previewed. We'll do a better job and be better prepared and test out our internet capabilities before we jump on this thing going forward. But let's catch a few comments before we get out of here. Bill Krug says our edge rushers will need to have a great season. We will not be as great up the middle on a pass rush except Carter. Very young interior D-line. Hunter Ivy says, luckily the Mississippi State game is later in the season. If Mississippi State was in the first half of the season, I would say it would be the toughest since our linebackers are so inexperienced. With that being said, Oregon is our toughest in our opinion. Agree that. And then John Akaki says, Lanning knows our weaknesses. I agree. I totally agree with that. It's going to be a tough game. I'm not looking past Oregon at all. But Bo Nix had a hard time scoring at Auburn with some talented receivers, and the cupboard's pretty bare over there.
They had a
Oregon on
big
the
offensive line there at Auburn too, and we were getting through. There were some huge guys on the offensive side of the ball at Auburn, and I know that a lot of our defense is gone, but like you were saying, Brian, the coffers are not empty.
Yep. Dad said, "What makes a quarterback a good game manager?" I guess if you can have a T-shirt named after you.
The Bo Nix experience.
The Bo Nix experience. All right, guys. Well, let's get off this thing. Appreciate everybody coming on. Appreciate Keith Marshall taking the time to speak with us while he was driving down the road there. Little technical difficulties with him, hearing him, but I appreciate everybody staying tuned in. Hunter Ivy, I like it. We're going to end it off with this. Bold prediction, UGA goes back-to-back. I love it. I'm crossing my fingers and my toes and praying that happens. And Mr. Khaki, I will honor your request, my friend. If we go back-to-back and win a natty, I'll come on here live and shave this beard off. It will be gone, my friend. It will be out of here. All right, fellas, y'all got any closing thoughts? Anything else you want to say?
Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.
All right, guys. We will be back on here on September the 1st. Be ready to ramp up against the Oregon Ducks. We'll have our hunting gear on. We'll be locked and loaded and ready to shoot some ducks out of the sky. But until then, pray for us. We need to do some work and get our rest knocked off for that Oregon game. But I'm Brian, Kevin, Matt, signing off. Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.